Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how to do this beautiful pumpkin design. So first of all, you want to go ahead and get a cup of water. Cover your area. The paint is acrylic, so if it gets on your clothes, you want to wash it out right away. I'm going to go ahead and take my brush. This cover, you want to put it in your water and you want to release the sizing. So you're going to want some paper towels and to dry off your brush. So for the first part, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make this stem, okay? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is find your plaster bag, and you don't clip the corner that's wide, you clip this little bitty one. So you just want a little tiny clip in that corner. All right, so what that's gonna do is it's gonna make it, when you squeeze it, just a very small amount of plaster comes out. So if you wanna do a close-up here, Heather, I'll show you how you just take that bag and you start squeezing real soft, just like a frosting bag. This is so fun. Make your little line like that. Come around. So that's the first layer. Going to do a second layer. Just squeeze it as you go. Another one. Just keep making those little rows of texture until you have it all filled in. So later we're going to paint that. So how does that look?
Oh, it's really
cool?
good.
Oh, I wanted to mention, we can just set this aside and we'll glue it on later. That way you don't have to worry about getting any paint on the board, okay? Okay, so we'll do the next step. All right, so for the next step, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just cut this a little deeper. So we're just gonna take another cut, and that way more of the plaster will come out, okay? And we're gonna start filling in each section here. So we just take the plaster and just kind of put a generous amount in the middle like that. Okay, so what we're going to do then, I'm going to use my finger. You can use the brush if you would prefer to do that, but I feel like I can smooth it out better with my finger. What I think I'm going to do is cover that black line a little bit and then actually carve it back out, because you'll be able to see the line, but we'll pull it out with the stick end of the brush a little bit. So there's a few places where I kind of covered over my line a little, so I'm just gonna take my paintbrush and I can see where those lines are and just kind of pull that back through using the stick end of my brush. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, these are your awesome instructions. So it says using orange, paint the pumpkin orange. Make sure not to press too hard into the plaster. So I'm going to open my paint. You just push down and open, press. So this paint is separated because of shipping, and so you want to take your stick end of your brush and make sure you really mix that. This paint is real creamy and thick, so if there's any water on it, you want to be sure to stir that all the way. And wipe it off. So you could let that plaster dry a little bit if you want to. I'm going to just show you what it's like if it doesn't dry. So I usually have just painted it while it's wet. But you just have to be a little bit more gentle. See how I'm just kind of staying on the surface? So for the first step, we're going to paint the whole thing orange, leaving the black lines. You can see as I'm putting the orange on, I'm just floating it across the surface. After I get it on there, then I kind of smooth everything out. And it's okay if it mixes a little bit. I think it's kind of pretty when some of the white mixes in the orange. It gives you like a, you know, the shadowing, like the kind of a variegated look. So don't worry too much if you get the plaster in there. And see how I'm just going back and smoothing it out. Any place where you got maybe paint back inside of there, you can just pull it out again. All right. It says to do purple next, but I've decided to do the chartreuse next. So I went ahead and opened the chartreuse. And you can follow your reference photo, and I just kind of added some green closer to the bottom edges. Now the orange is still wet, so it's kind of nice how the colors, they mix together and just adds, those are complementary colors. They look good together. All right. So you notice I'm not really going up on the top, I'm kind of staying on the right edge. Blending it in a little bit with the orange. Next thing I want to do is add a little bit of purple into the bottom. So this is kind of representing a shadow. So I'm going to stay at the right bottom corner. The purple can be pretty strong, so if you feel like it's too much, just wipe it off and then kind of blend it in a bit with a blank brush, with no paint on your brush. I almost feel like that purple is almost a little too strong. I think maybe I should just stay closer to the bottom with it. If you get a spot where you're like not liking the purple, you could go back in with the orange or the green. Again, this would be easier to do if your plaster was dry, but it works either way. So I'm having the light source come from this way so that it's a little darker towards the bottom. So I'm just going to add a little purple here, and then probably that's all I'm going to do. looks like I covered my line, so I'm going to pull it back out. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I stirred my black paint, and I'm going to do the black background only at the bottom. You see how at the bottom I have a black background and at the top I have white. And so after this dries, then we'll do the stencil on top. So we want to make sure it's dry first. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how to do these polka dots. So we're going to do the white area first, and you have a little stencil in your kit, so find your stencil. And then the tricky part is I'm going to show you how to use your brush. So your brush is going to have a point on it. So what you want to do is take your black paint and you want to bounce your brush straight up and down right in the center of your palette. Bounce it out. So what you're doing is you're getting some of the paint off of it. Make sure your brush is dry before you start. You don't want water on your brush ever. When you're stenciling, you never have a wet brush. So what you're doing is you're trying to get more of a dry brush, okay? So your brush is pretty dry. You hold your stencil in place and you gently, very gently, start filling in your stencil. Now, by bouncing straight up and down, you're not allowing the paint to leak underneath the stencil. So you gently lift it, you got a perfect little polka dot there, okay? Now this one, I'm gonna just do slightly off of the board where it's, I don't know if you can see it there. So it's like halfway off the board. And you notice I didn't have to reload my brush. There's still plenty of paint on there. And that's really the secret here, is to have a very small amount of paint on the brush. So think of it as dry brushing, all right? All right, so you might want to wait for your pumpkin to dry to do these. I think I will, just because I'm gonna head over here, let that spot dry a little bit. Just make sure as you're bouncing your brush, you're just bouncing it up and down until you fill it all the way in. Lift it carefully. Perfect. So when you get more paint on your brush, then go ahead and work it off again, bouncing it in the middle, dry it out. Let's see, I'll do maybe one running off. See, I think they look good when they kind of go off of the board a bit. Put one there. Okay, I'm a little bit obsessed with black and white polka dots. I absolutely love black and white. But you can do a different design if you want, you know, think kind of outside the box, whatever you want in your background. So what we're gonna do next is the white polka dots on the black, so I had to wait for the black to dry. So that took a minute. I also had to dry out my brush. Get all the black out of it. Make sure you do that. Make sure your stencil's dry, okay? So once you do all of that, then you're gonna do the same thing where you bounce out your color to make sure you have a dry brush. So we're gonna dry brush these white polka dots. Straight up and down, starting in the center and working out to the edges. No wet paint. You don't want the paint to be gushy. You don't want extra water. Okay, just like that. Run off the page a little. If you want to do a spot where it's still wet, you can kind of hold the edge up like that. That's how I'm doing it, or you can just wait till it dries. Notice I haven't had to reload my brush. Nice. All right, got too much paint. What do you think, Heather? Does that work? I probably could use a couple more little bitty ones on the side.
I agree.
Everybody say hi to Heather. Heather's been with me for about 10 years. One of these days I'm gonna get her on the camera. But she's doing an awesome job filming, and she also does my instructions. So we have beautiful, beautiful instructions. That looks great. You love it?
Oh, I love it.
All right. Okay, so I went ahead and opened the light yellow. The instructions said to use chartreuse for the stem and just kind of water it down. But I think I'm gonna try doing a little bit of light yellow. So I think I'm gonna add a little water to my brush, add a little bit of light yellow. What I really want to do here is I want the paint to kind of fall down in the cracks, sort of like an antiquing effect. You see how you don't want to mush it down and lose all that pretty texture. Got a lot of cool texture there. So that's kind of light, so I'm going to add a little green to the bottom. What happens if I add a little orange? Because orange and green would make brown, so if you wanted it to look a little bit more brown, you could add a little bit of orange. So I guess the last thing we have to do then is to glue on the leaf. So you want this to all dry, and this leaf comes in your kit. It is foil, and you can take and bend it however you want. And so after this dries, you're gonna get some white glue and just kind of glue it on however you want to glue it on. Kind of glue it on sideways. So then after this whole thing is dry, you're gonna get white glue, and you'll place your board where you want it on the background, and you want to be really generous with your white glue. Okay, so figure out where you want your board, and then put plenty of glue on the background, and then place your board where you want it, and of course you want to let that dry for at least 24 hours. Also, if you have one that doesn't have the words on it, you could place it, you know, in a different spot. You might want to put it up here, or you may want to put some of your own words, like your family, name of your family, or Happy Thanksgiving, or whatever you decide that you want to do. So, well, I think that's it. I think, and these also come with a hanger on the back. So, did we want to show how to do the children's version? Let me just show that real quick. So on your instructions, it also shows how to do for a child, like if they want to carve it. But what it is, it's pretty much the same. You just paint it the same, but then you can take the stick end of your brush and you carve out the eyes. So let's say that's painted orange. You just take and you carve out your eyes and your smile, and then you can just like we painted the orange, you can paint them yellow. So you can follow the picture, put him on some eyebrows. Looks like on the eyes I took some white and I dotted the eye with some white, and so so I think that would be a lot of fun to do too. Okay, so I hope that you really love your finished painting. After it's all dry, you can just hang it on the wall, or you can put a frame on it. I love the words blessings, count them one by one. This time of year of Thanksgiving, I think that's really speaks my heart. I have so many blessings in my life, and I'm sure you feel that way as well. So I hope that this kit blessed you, and I hope that you share it with your friends, and hopefully maybe have a party, have a good time, and pick out another kit. We have a lot of different ones, and so I look forward to you posting your pictures and hearing how you liked it. Thanks for joining us.